To call to order a special meeting of the Summers Board of Selectmen. Today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Tonight we have Selectman Bill Meyer on my right. We have Mike Marinaccio, CFO, on my right. Brian Wissinger, Assistant Director of Finance, on my right. Kim LaFleur, Director of Operations, on my left. In the audience we have Director Todd Rowland, Public Works Director, and Director Maureen Parcell, Director of Recreation and Leisure Services. We also have Pat Loftus, who is the chair of the Cemetery Committee. Public comment. I don't think we have any of that tonight. No, we don't. Okay, then I've got an opportunity to make a few comments myself as the first selectman. First of all, I'd like to bring to everyone's attention and remind them of, they may have read in the newspaper, of comments made last week by a Summers elected official. These were ill-advised comments made last week with regards to comments made towards the town of Stafford or about the town of Stafford or about their leadership. Just like to say that I think every elected official is entitled to his or her opinion, but is not entitled to make remarks found to be highly offensive to a neighboring town. So for the town of Summers, I'd like to apologize to the leadership and residents of Stafford. This is not what Summers is about. Summers values a strong and positive relationship with our neighboring town. We rely on each other. We assist each other. We both benefit from this relationship and value that relationship going forward. Thank you. One other thing I wanted to mention is with regards to the EMS services that Summers does provide to Stafford. We just received this afternoon a signature of Alec Moore, the chief of the Ambulance Fire Association in Stafford, on an agreement that we negotiated, and that agreement covers operational costs, not fixed costs, primarily for sending a flight car, an intercept flight car, to Stafford for ALS services. We will have a special Board of Selectmen meeting scheduled for next Tuesday at 5 p.m. to basically to discuss the agreement, review it, and with the potential that it will authorize the first selectman to sign the agreement, which would allow our finance department to send an invoice to Stafford for the cost, the expenses that we've agreed upon. That's all I have this evening. Consent agenda. Don't think we have anything there. Finance. Any transfers or appropriations?
No.
CFO finance report.
Well, I don't really have a report, other than I would help to finalize the language in that agreement that you made reference to, but other than that, no.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for assisting in putting that agreement together, of course, as well. Updates from boards and commissions. We have none, I don't believe. Pending business, discussion and possible action on cemetery buyback policy. Mr. Wissinger.
Yeah, so this item was given to you guys sometime in January. I forget exactly which meeting it was. This was a policy request from the cemetery committee. It was given to you guys. We had it reviewed by the town attorney. We also added the language that was requested. It's that the on the fifth bullet point under process, the Board of Selectmen shall have the sole discretion to decide whether or not the plots shall be repurchased by the town. That wording was sent over by Carl to be added in upon your request. Other than that, I haven't heard any other feedback on any changes for this. So we are requesting approval with an effective date of 7/1/23.
Okay. Thank you. I'd make a motion to approve the cemetery buyback policy as presented.
I'll second that motion.
I just thank you to Brian and to Pat and the Cemetery Commission for your work on this. I think the policy is well written, and I think it's a good thing for Summers and for our cemetery. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you both as well. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
What was the status of the other cemetery?
It's coming up.
No, I'm saying, not the ordinance, I'm saying the, kind of the role and scope of the Cemetery Commission. I thought we were gonna outline a document with that.
We have been working on it. I sent the committee met last night. I gave them a draft of a quote-unquote job description for the liaison. They were working on one for kind of what their duties were. We're still kind of hammering out all those details, but that should be coming your guys' way pretty soon as well.
Thank you.
Good, we're making progress on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, thank you.
New business. Discussion and possible action. Chief Roach is not here. But there is in the folder you'll find, discussion and possible action request on the use of the Summers Fire Station by Boy Scout Troop 387 for a pasta dinner fundraiser. So it's under,
Make a motion that the Board of Selectmen authorize Summers Boy Scout Troop 387 to use the Summers Fire Station for an event on Thursday, April 13th from 5 to 9 p.m. and that the board waive all fees associated with such use of the building.
Right. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Presentation of an ordinance prohibiting the spread of ashes on public land, possible action to accept the ordinance and set up a public hearing date. Yeah, why don't you just
Yeah, I was
step up
gonna say I'd defer to
explain.
Pat on this
Is the
one.
microphone?
That microphone should be on.
Did you do it? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. One minute. Okay, Pat. Do you want me to give you this? Okay. Brian, you need to expand that. She forgot the glass. Oh, it is. That's on me.
In the spring of '22,
Microphone on? Yeah. Just checking, okay, right, thank you.
in the spring of '22, I received a phone call from our sexton at the time telling me that human cremains had been left in Center Cemetery in a box leaning up against a gravestone. I went down, photographed the box, photographed the gravestone. The names didn't match, so I didn't know if there was any relationship. It turns out the cremains belonged to a woman who lived in the Boston area and had died 8-9 years earlier. Through Ancestry.com, Legacy.com, and a whole other list of .coms, I was able to figure out who the closest living relative was, and she lives in Massachusetts, but near enough to be an easy drive. And it turned out the ashes were those of her mother, and it was her husband who was buried. So I called her and said, you really can't leave them here. Between deterioration of the container and mowing and trimming, etc., this could become really messy and it could really disturb other people who visit the cemetery. At that time, I didn't know if it was legal to do that or not. However, I had called her on either a Thursday or a Friday afternoon. Did not check over the weekend. I figured it would take her a couple of days to make arrangements to come down here. And by Monday afternoon, they were gone. Problem seemed to be solved. I gave her Mr. Wissinger's name and phone number, suggested she call him, and if she wanted to have the remains buried in one of the 2 plots that she owned, that could be arranged for. And her question was, does that cost money? And I said, yes. And then there was this great silence. And I thought, okay, there's part of the issue, which
Of course.
I can't do anything about, but maybe with some smooth talking, Mr. Wissinger could help her through this process. Not discounted, but at least explain the process. And I never heard anything more either from her or from Mr. Wissinger, so I'm assuming that Mom is somewhere else at the moment.
As I say, I don't remember her ever actually contacting me.
No, I don't think she
Okay.
So time goes by, and in December, I became aware of someone from town who was planning on either scattering or burying ashes on town property, but it wasn't in a cemetery. And at the meeting I was at, all heads swiveled toward me, and I said, nope, not happening. But then I went home and got on the computer and discovered that the state of Connecticut does have a general statute. It's 19A-323, and it's on the handling of cremains, and it is legal in the state of Connecticut to scatter human cremains anywhere on state property or municipal property. But if you go to the bottom of the document, it says local zoning can prohibit. So I brought all that information to First Selectman Keeney on the 6th of December and said, please do not kick this can down the road. I think we are headed for a problem. So here we are in March, and I received this document yesterday, and it was not looked at by the cemetery committee until last night. I have some concerns. One was brought up by another member of the committee that a $250 fine is going to be ineffective in that if someone looks at the cost of burying even cremains versus a fine or a fee, well, they'd rather pay the $250 than pay the $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost.
But Grandma's gonna be removed in the process.
And you're gonna have to pay anyway.
Yeah, I think one of the answers to that is, because I asked the same question, because I thought that originally it started off at $100, and I said, that's the cost of doing business. I mean, you just
You can't
drop
go to the
$100
grocery
and
store
leave it
for
there, yeah.
Right.
Don't even consider that.
Can't take your
please.
spouse out to dinner for less than $100, right?
I mean, I was gonna ask why it's only
So,
$250.
yeah, because that's
I
sort
would
of-
think
that's
there
the
should be
maximum.
$500 personally.
That's what I wanted, $500, right? Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The problem is that $500 is equivalent to a misdemeanor in the way that the rules are written, and that
Not allowed
would
to
be
charge that.
too
I think
high.
it's a violation, as opposed to an infraction.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
How about $4.99?
What do our existing regulations say? We don't have any existing cemetery regulations that prohibit this?
No.
None, no.
Other states do.
And other towns, I think, do as well.
Bill had asked me before the meeting about
Yeah.
other towns. I'm unaware of what other towns are doing. Cemetery rules for municipal cemeteries vary from town to town, but they're really very close. And I have not seen in any of the research I did on cemetery rules for another issue that ever mentioned either scattering, burying, or leaving cremains. It's not a health issue because there is no virus or bacteria that can survive in a crematory. But
It's just a little creepy.
As far as health and care of our town properties, or parks, or schoolyards, I mean,
one of the thoughts that I had for a comeback to this, if anyone asked, let's say the grandparents went to a grandchild's lacrosse play for years. Now the child is in college, they don't have anybody to watch specifically, but they still come to games. Well, then the grandparents pass away, and the next generation down thinks, oh, it'd be great to scatter their ashes on the lacrosse field so that they can always be in attendance at a game. Well, if that information ever got out, that was happening, it would surely get to the ears of a child. We've got enough problems in this town without having more children, more nightmares.
So I guess the way how this is written, and it just, and for people watching it, they can't see this, but it says, "Be it resolved that on or after the effective day of the ordinance, it shall be unlawful to scatter, bury, or place human remains, or place human or animal ashes on any lands of the town of Somers, except as otherwise permitted in public cemeteries." So it sounds like we're just doing a blanket ban. I mean, there's no provision to issue a permit, there's no provision for any type of permission.
Right.
That's exactly what it is.
You just can't do it.
Right,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
Not on town property.
that's right. They can do it in their backyard,
Yes.
they can do it in their neighbor's yard, you know.
We wouldn't recommend that.
No.
I guess I'm just wondering the
Full
issue,
disclosure.
I mean, I know you gave an example, but I mean, I'm just wondering if someone wanted to scatter ashes, like what's the problem? I mean, I understand the box, I think the box is problematic, I think an urn is problematic, but I mean, if somebody, I mean, people go to the beach and scatter ashes, people go to mountaintops and scatter ashes, like if somebody, say, went to a hiking trail in town that's owned by the town and scattered ashes, like what, I mean, what's the harm, I guess?
It depends on who walks up after that
Right.
and notices them.
I guess, yeah,
And recognizes
it's
what they are.
public property, and,
Okay.
the town has an obligation to, maintain, and
I don't know if the cemetery committee has had any discussions about potentially putting a scatter garden in the center cemetery where there would be an area for people to scatter ashes in that,
Yeah.
manner. I don't know if there's been any discussion of that recently. I know a few years ago when Tim was on the committee, I know there was a slight discussion about it then. I don't know if that's kind of died away since we, for lack of better
No
terms.
pun intended.
Yeah, you know, with the addition of the columbarium, I don't know if that idea, if that concept kind of faded away. That would be an option for people, I think, in the future if we wanted to develop that in the cemetery rather than putting it out to just spread them all over town lands.
Yeah.
The church
And then
across
with
the
fall-
street does have a scatter garden.
Summers
Yeah.
Congregational
Don't
Church.
know if they would request an honorarium for that, a donation. I don't know what their policies are. I am unaware of any municipal cemetery that has done that. My guess is that would collapse your business model.
You might not be wrong, unless it's required to be charged for or something of that nature.
I mean, I don't wanna just charge though to charge, I mean, if there's another way that people are happy with, and it doesn't cost the town anything, and the residents satisfied with it, I mean, I don't, okay.
But that would be on cemetery grounds, and that would be different from this ordinance.
Can we research, I mean, and just see what other towns have this? I'd be very curious, I mean, if we're the first in the state, or if other towns have a similar ordinance. I mean, I know tonight we're not voting to approve it, we would send it to a public hearing for public comment input,
Right,
but,
originally, this was also
Yeah.
supposed to be a draft that would come to the summer cemetery, and then we would have a combined meeting with zoning, because the document for the state does say a zoning ordinance. So, I don't want them blindsided by this.
do we have the authority then? I mean, I assume we spoke to the town attorney, I mean, we have the authority to do an ordinance?
Yes, we did,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, no, he wrote this when,
okay.
I didn't even know it was on the docket, and I emailed him about it, and he sent me over, you know, like you said, a boilerplate kind of ordinance. I know Tim made some adjustments to it, and this is what we came up
I
with.
mean, another step would be, we would just make a cemetery regulation and like prohibit leaving remains on the cemetery, you know, I mean, that are not buried. I mean, there are other potential intermediate steps if we didn't want to go to the length of an ordinance, but,
I would suggest going broader than cemetery grounds, because the second, potential incident was designed not for cemetery grounds, but for town property,
Yeah.
other town property.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and that except for, as otherwise permitted in public cemeteries, that becomes the purview of the cemetery committee, whatever they want to do on cemetery land,
Right, if they wanna,
whatever regulation they may want to establish,
right,
so.
Which right
But
now
I
is
agree
no
with Pat, this
animal
is for
access.
the rest of the town.
yeah.
Could we set a date for, public hearing?
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with taking public comment on it, I don't know, I guess I haven't made up my mind yet as far as my opinion on the ordinance, but I'd like to hear more about it, I think, again, what other towns have it, and, what the public thinks about it, if, what the public feedback is, because it seems like everything we do with the cemetery, there's a pretty strong reaction, so I'm just curious as to what, okay. All right, so I'd make a motion then,
April 6th,
Um,
seven PM.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I can't do April 6th.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the next
Right.
regular meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, I can't,
no worries, go to a different one. You meet on the 6th and the 20th
So this,
of April.
are you gonna not be here to the 6th?
I don't know. It's my son's birthday, so I'll probably try and come to the meeting, but I would rather not have a long,
Okay,
if possible.
just do the next meeting on the 20th
Okay,
of April. We can do the public hearing then.
is that okay if we do it
Sure,
the
that's
20th?
fine.
Okay, that's
I'll
fine.
just change my notes. It's
Okay.
fine.
So I make a motion that the, Board of Selectmen schedule a public hearing, for April 20th at, 6 PM?
7 PM?
At 7 PM?
Yeah, 'cause we
Okay.
have a regular.
Right.
7 PM, for the, proposed ordinance prohibiting the spreading of ashes on public land.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Nice to see you. I've seen you a lot lately.
Okay, next on the agenda is a presentation, for the Senior/Community Center,
Hello, Tom.
and, Director of Public Works, Todd Rowland.
Oh, I get 2 documents. They may have all these in their packet
Thank you.
already, too.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good, updated that.
Great.
Thank you.
I see.
Good evening. For the record, Todd Rowland, Director of Public Works. I come before the Board of Selectmen tonight for the Senior Community Center request. I've got a presentation to go through and talk about what we've done thus far, and then get into it a little bit. Let's see, this is just having a little technical issue here. Let's try that. There we go.
I'm like, right, what are you doing?
So, as you know, we've been working on dealing with the challenges of the existing senior center, and there's some of the highlights here bulleted. The existing center is 31 years old, does not meet current commercial building codes, and as they like to call it, it's a one-room schoolhouse. It can only accommodate one activity at a time in the large room. The only other really available space we have is in the Kibbe Gym, which is very small and limited to 15 people. And that space is utilized by Recreation, Human Services, and some senior programming. So we're very tight on space, and it's been a problem for quite some time.
Acoustical problems.
Too, right, acoustical problems, because you have people at the senior center that don't hear well. I don't know what's up
Correct.
with that.
Anytime there's something going on, the staff gets shushed a lot if they're
Yeah.
trying to work. And the senior center is primarily used by older folks, our older seniors. It's not used by our, let's say, younger seniors. And it's only open 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, and not used much at all at night. And there's only one group that uses it on Sunday. So it's underutilized. The building has some challenges. It's basically a slab-on-grade wood frame house. It's not a commercial building. So for all of these reasons and more, we put together a building committee consisting of the first selectman, the chief financial officer, the assistant finance director, the recreation and leisure services director, the human services director, and myself, the public works director. We started meeting last spring. We drafted a request for qualifications to retain the services of an engineering / architectural firm. We received 2 proposals in June. At the special meeting we had in July, we requested an appropriation for this firm that we ultimately hired, GWWO, that we chose of the 2. That was approved at town meeting in August. We contracted with GWWO in August and had our kickoff meeting in September. Since September, we've been meeting regularly with our vendor and came up with the designs that you're familiar with that we had town meetings on, which is part of a different presentation. In October, we drafted and posted a community survey. It was sent to every household in Summers, as well as put on Facebook and on the town website. It was 4,000 plus households. We received 723 responses to that survey, and we used the data from the survey to guide our design decisions. Now, that survey had a number of questions on it about what would you like to see in town, if we built a new facility, what kind of facility would you like to see, what kind of use would you like to see in the facility, also some demographic information of who was responding, and overwhelmingly it was positively, the responses were positive, and a lot of commonalities came up in that survey, which we have posted on the website and talked about at the last meeting about this facility. In December, the building committee and members of GWWO did visit a couple other facilities that are new, that are similar to ours, and talk with the staff, really to kind of gauge what their feeling was and how their process went, things that went well, things that were challenging, things they would do differently. Also talked a lot about space and needs of the facility that they built and what they would do differently if they could do it over again. So that gave us some more ideas on the final design of this facility. We had 2 community input sessions in January, one at the senior center and one at the town hall, where we showed the design that we're proposing with elevations and how it'll look outside as well as inside, and floor plans and what the entire facility will look like and the flow and how it'll be used. Now, if this does get approved and we do bring this project to fruition, there will be some additional operating costs. First is hard costs such as energy, trash, cleaning, maintenance, things of those nature. And we don't have a really good model in Summers to kind of base it off. I really wanted to get some hard data on real numbers. You can look online and look at estimates from people that build these facilities, and they run anywhere from $3 to $6 a square foot. The closest facility we have is the library, which is a fairly modern facility, redone in 2009 and added on to. So we looked at those operating costs, and that comes out to about $4.11 a square foot. So we took that operating cost and we extrapolated it out to the 15,600 square foot facility we're proposing. That comes up with an annual operating cost for hard costs of $64,000 and change. What this means is if we bring this project to fruition as it's stated, we would need to increase our operating budgets by $41,000 and change or thereabouts. Now, these are all forecasts and subject to change. Obviously, I don't know what energy is going to cost in 2 years. There may be some other hidden costs. We do expect that a new facility will be more energy efficient than an existing facility, so there may be some savings to be had there. But at the same time, we also expect the usage of the facility to be dramatically more than the existing senior center, because the senior center right now is only open 8 to 4. We anticipate this facility will be open longer hours during the week and also on the weekends if our residents demand it, which we fully expect. Other costs would be staffing. Currently, the Rec and Leisure Services Department is split between Kibbe Fuller and the Senior Center. The staff at the Senior Center currently consists of a full-time supervisor, a part-time coordinator, and a part-time administrative assistant, as well as part-time bus drivers. The staff at Kibbe Fuller consists of the full-time Rec and Leisure Services Director and 2 coordinators. When this facility is constructed, all of those folks would be sharing space in the staff area of this facility, so there'll be more bodies in the facility. We'll get some synergies of effort for that. However, that being said, we do anticipate having to hire a new staff member or more, particularly to have somebody at the front desk welcoming folks into a facility like this during the hours, peak hours, and potentially anytime we're open. If we're running programming at this kind of a facility, those programs could charge fees and we could recover some costs there. But if our residents demand we're, say, open hours, if people want to use the walking track, you know, till 8 o'clock at night, then it would be a staff position, and that will affect the budget, frankly. So a facility like this is nearly 4 times the size of the current senior center, will be utilized much more heavily than the current facility. So there will be additional costs, and we want to be very upfront about that. Moving on to construction costs, we met in February with GWO. They came up with a opinion of probable cost totaling $15 million and change. That was with everything. We asked them to include everything with high-quality finishes. After getting that number, we met with them again and looked at line items in that proposal. One being things like they had in there a scoreboard for the gym that was $100,000. We don't feel we need something like that. They had commercial appliances in the kitchens which were very high-end and expensive, things of that nature. We asked them to look at their estimates again, and also they had a 15% accelerator in there. Excuse me, a 10% accelerator for construction costs and a 15% overall. And we thought that, we asked them if they could do better than that, and they came back with a new proposal at 12 million, just over 12 million. And the way they got there is they took out a lot of those ancillary costs as well as a lot of the outside work in this proposal. There's things there that Public Works could facilitate, such as the pickleball courts, demoing of the existing senior center. When we get to that phase, there's a lot of sidewalks they had proposed that we could change and scale back. Other things that we looked at was like the brick patio outside the multi-purpose room, using poured concrete instead of brick. The radon venting system was another one which we probably won't need, frankly, and that has been changed to an alternate. So they came back, changed a lot of things to alternate. We changed some of the finishes and some of the final items. They also reduced the percentages to 5% contingency on the construction costs and 7.5% on the overall project. After that final scrubbing, we came up with a final cost estimate of $11,914,000. At this juncture, we are requesting a town bond issue not to exceed $12.5 million to allow the project to progress. The extra amount is in there for engineering services, which were not included in this $11,900,000. If this project does progress, we will also seek, and we will create a nonprofit to seek funds from the private sector. Modeling what Longmeadow has done, they created a Longmeadow Adult Community Center Fund. We would create a Summers Senior Community Center Fund to seek donations from the private sector, private businesses, and what have you, to offset some of the costs that we felt we had to make. We're also looking for funding through the state and federal grants, and we'll continue that through this entire project, looking for any monies that we can be had through those programs, which are robust right now. So in quick summation, I'm requesting the Board of Selectmen approve this project and move it on to the CIP committee for consideration in an amount not to exceed $12.5 million. And I'll take any questions that you have.
What's the estimated cost of the engineering and design?
Pardon?
I think it's 137.
For what we paid for is 137 thus far. It'll be more for the, stamped plans and engineering drawings, and that's, we're estimating $500,000. Again, it's an estimate. All of this is a forecast. These projects have a way of, depending on what you want. You know, if we want everything, it's gonna cost more. We might go out to bid and have more expenses that we will have to make some hard decisions about. These types of projects can easily go over the cost of what we're budgeting, so we have to be very cognizant of that. Their engineering estimates are just that, they're estimates. Until we write all the specs and we go out to bid, we won't know what everything's gonna cost.
Maybe you could share with us the response and information we received from the building expert that was involved with...
The estimator, yes, he felt very comfortable at our last number. I mean, there's some things in there, he went back and tightened up, is what I called it, a lot of his construction costs based on what they are today. He doesn't feel like they're going to go up anymore, and in fact, they're probably flat, and they might come back a little bit, given what's going on in the market. He felt very comfortable with it. Again, it's a forecast. He could be wildly inaccurate. Probably not, he does it every day.
But he's also an expert, right?
He is an expert, yes, he's an engineer, and this is what he does. You know, could it be more? Yes, absolutely. And if it is, we're gonna have hard decisions to make and have to go back to the residents and give them some options. You know, from my perspective, I would love to have more money. Who wouldn't? But, you know, I don't know if the finance wants to talk to how this will affect our debt service, but we were trying to be very conscious of what we were doing here and trying to keep it in line with our historical debt service.
I think Brian can speak to that, but I have to say that the two of us have been consulting extensively over the past week on that, going back and forth with our financial advisors, trying to come up with scenarios.
So this is based on $12.5 million bond, the numbers that our financial advisor sent over to us. So it started with current year, our actual debt service, the premium that we received on the bond issuance in 2020, to come up with a net debt service. Same with 2024. 2025 would be the first of any kind of payment, and that would be on a potential ban that we would run to get the project started. The estimated premium on that's $25,550. There is an interest cost associated with that. You normally don't see that within the budget. It rolls into the bond issuance when you issue. But if we did budget for that, that would be an impact of 0.18 mils on over the current fiscal over the prior year actual debt service. 2026 is the first year that you would see potentially any actual payment towards the bond itself. That would be, and that would equate up to 0.37 mils over the prior year. And then after that, it begins to go down each year from there, with the actual debt service cost going down year over year. And by 2029, the 0.37 that went up in 2026 is it's back to zero at that point. So it's on a mill rate basis, it goes back flat, and then would reduce after that. There would be zero impact beyond that. And again, this is based off actual, not any net debt service. So if there's if an estimated premium comes in higher, that was the number that was given to us as their estimate. If it came in higher, then the net cost to the town would reduce as well. And I'm basing it off of the actual debt service, not the net.
And what's the interest rate we're projecting this based on?
Right now, it's 4.71 is what they're giving us as a projected interest rate.
And when's our issuance going to be, about a year or two away?
This is projected for an issuance in September of 2025.
Okay. So obviously, we don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, the Fed signaled that the rates are gonna go up, I think more than people expected just this week. I think it kinda came as a surprise to the market.
These
so-
were based on numbers that she gave me today. So I assume that they're kind of factoring that in as well.
Well, you need a crystal ball to do that.
You're right, I mean, you don't.
You would, yeah.
You would.
That's one of the reasons why we go for the short-term financing initially,
Yeah,
for 1 year. And we would have an option at that point, if the rates started to climb, to do another 1 year, short-term
Yeah.
financing too, which would kick it out an additional year. So there are a lot of moving parts to this, we don't have a crystal ball,
No,
obviously,
agreed.
so, yeah.
I know
What's the
the
historic
last,
average rate, if you do like a 20-year average?
I'd have to ask for that, I don't have it. I know the last issuance, they were projecting 3.8, and we ended up issuing, now granted, we hit a gold mine because the market was collapsing at the time, but we ended up issuing in the, low twos, high ones or somewhere
There's a
around there.
once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
You're absolutely right.
Which we took full advantage of.
Which we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying that that'll happen again, nor do I want it to happen again in the sense that I want to see the market collapse, but, I see their estimates, and are we plus or minus 0.5? Maybe.
Okay. What, this is a 30-year issuance?
This would be a 30-year
The last
issuance.
few bonds, what have we done for a term?
20.
Okay, so I mean, this is a longer term than normal, which obviously reduces our payment, but it also
Increases
means we're
the
gonna be, the longevity of it.
Right, it increases the cost of interest over, you pay more in interest for that,
Just like your home mortgage.
right.
Same.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a way to keep it lower artificially, but we're paying it longer.
Right,
Okay.
and the only ways that,
Yeah.
there's only certain items that actually qualify for a 30-year bond.
Yeah, the building.
Construction of a new building is one of them.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the useful life exceeds 30 years. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
it doesn't like ring any alarm bells, but I think it's
Right.
just something to be mindful of that.
Puts it into perspective.
Yeah, I mean, for the next 30 years, the town's gonna have this debt, and,
Yeah.
we're gonna have other bonds to issue during that time.
Oh,
And It's
absolutely.
gonna be a factor. I mean, I
We're
think,
carrying library debt, we're carrying school debt still.
yeah,
And that's gonna be dropping off the books in the 2027 or so timeframe, so.
but we're very likely gonna have a large school bond in our future, and then potentially a road bond as well.
Yeah.
If I,
So, we're kinda lucky, we have a very low bond bond
do.
debt per capita.
Yeah, no, there's no question, we
Yeah.
have been responsible with our bonding,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Thank you.
Next item is a CIP request for this, facility. The next step in this process is to move this to the Capital Improvement Committee for consideration. I'm requesting a bond issue not to exceed $12.5 million for the construction of a new senior community center.
I have some general questions for that, I think we're still
Go
on
ahead,
questions.
sure, go ahead.
Okay. Number one, Todd, I mean, thank you for your work on this. I know you, the committee, Maureen, the finance team, and others spent a lot of time on this. I mean, it's been almost a year now, a lot of meetings, a lot of work, a lot of consultants. I think, I appreciate the fact that we've gotten so much community input. I think we had a great response to the survey. I think we had great attendance at both of the public information sessions. I think, generally, we've heard positive feedback, that people are in favor of this. I really haven't heard anyone that questions the need, for us to do something. I mean, the current senior center is clearly inadequate. It clearly needs to be upgraded. There's no dispute of any of that. So I've gone through in kind of detail, I know we've chatted a little, with the proposal. I'm a little bit concerned on the cost. I know the initial cost came in at $15 million.
correct.
I think this is close to a $15 million project, as it's presented right now. And just looking at the reductions that were made, I think we essentially took a $15 million project and we're trying to build it for $12.5 million. And I think I'm afraid that on day one, we're gonna be over budget, and we know we're gonna be over budget. because we didn't really make any reductions from the 15 million. I mean,
Well,
we took
did.
about...
It was both reductions in the, retainage, and it was also reductions in the exterior, features as well as some of the interior stuff. So it
Change
was
some of the
both.
materials. yeah.
But you're right, I mean, it was going from 15% to 7.5%, and from 10 to 5, and you could be very well, there's no way to know until you go out to bid. And once we go out to bid, and if we get prices that blows this out of the water, we will have some very hard decisions to make. Absolutely. From my perspective, 15 million's better than 12.5, sure. What do we feel like will fit within our bond, our issuance and our debt service that is palpable to the residents? If we get to it and it's a $15 million project after we go out to bid, we're gonna have to take a look at that and decide where we go from here. Do we make it smaller? Do we change the quality of some of the materials that we're using? Are we going to change the layout of the facility? Those are all discussions that would have to be had.
Yeah, so I would pose two options in that scenario. One would be that, we would have to cut something from the building and say, we're staying within the 12.5 million. The other proposal would be you put a 15 million appropriation out there, and if we only need 12.5 to build it, then that's all we would have bonded for to begin with, and we have 2.5 million in appropriation that never gets spent.
And that's an option.
Right.
We could do a $15 million.
That is an option.
You have to do the
I mean, I don't want to bond $15 million, I can tell you that much. I don't think would be a good idea, but at the same time too, if you bond 12 million and you get 2 million in grants,
Right.
you don't have a $14 million appropriation, you still only have a $12 million appropriation, so you can't spend 14 million, you can only spend 12 million.
Right.
So
Well, what's the best way forward? I mean, we did scrub this twice.
we did, you're absolutely
Well,
right.
I've looked at the quote-unquote scrubbing, and the only it was maybe, off the top of my head, about $600,000 in hard cuts, as far as the paving and some of that stuff. The rest of it, we didn't actually scrub anything, we just went down,
True, to the architect's quote was that they figured high in their estimation.
They did.
What they said.
They admitted that they were very
We can argue
conservative and they were
15%
very high.
higher, it should be 20, should it be 10, should it be 7.5 like we have now?
And if we're being unrealistic, tell us that we're unrealistic.
Yeah, right.
And they would say, they would come back and say, I could live with that,
Yeah.
we can live
That's
with
what
that.
they said.
Or at times, they said, no, we can't live with that, this is our bottom number, and so we would go with what the
Well, he's
consultants
got a
would
lot
say.
of exclusions in this, which I think is kind of he's covering himself. There's a long
course.
list, longer than normal, I think, list of
The
exclusions.
accountants and lawyers, all professionals, I guess, do cover themselves.
They do.
Even the weatherman, so.
But I would just say, as a general rule for a project like this, you would factor in 6 to 8% in design. We're below that. We've not factored in 6 to 8%, we're below 6. In a project like this, we're in the conceptual phase, as a rule, you'd factor in 20% contingency, we're doing 7.5.
Where do you come up with that 20%?
These are construction best industry standards, so
Well,
typically...
we were talking to the experts, though. I don't know where you're coming up with 20%.
Well, he gave you a 15% contingency, and then we slashed
He
it.
starts off everything high, and then starts off from there.
Well, but then he also transferred the risk to us, and he said, well, you can roll the dice and do 7.5, but I can't guarantee that you're not gonna run over wildly. And I think that's the issue. So just as a general rule in construction for buildings, when you're in the conceptual phase, you have a larger contingency because you have a lot of uncertainties. And right now, everything's uncertain. What kind of HVAC system are we gonna have? We don't even know the design. We heard from a lot of residents saying that they didn't like how the roof looked. They didn't like, so if we start making changes there, there's no other changes to make though. So we have a zero allowance for FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, zero.
Sure.
That's very unusual to have zero for FF&E. We don't even have things like security cameras built into this. I assume we're gonna have security cameras on the building?
Yeah, we're planning on Verkada like we do the rest of the
So,
time.
you're probably talking $50,000 in
No.
security cameras,
We spend $1,000 on a camera.
$1,000
Yep.
per
At
camera.
one time purchase, actually less than that now, it's a state bid, but, every time we buy cameras, we go Verkada, and they're less than $1,000 a piece. Depending on how many we put in, will depend on what the price is.
Okay. So we have no furniture, we have no fixtures. I know there's some plan for fundraising, and that's fine. I mean, I think some of this, for instance, the fitness equipment, it would make sense maybe to fundraise for that. But I mean, there is nothing. I mean, this is literally an empty shell of a building.
Well, it makes sense to fundraise for furniture as well. It makes sense to fundraise for wall hangings,
Okay.
basketball, scoreboard,
If somebody wants it, yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of different options
Yes, there
for
is
people that wanna give us
That is
money.
what our plan is at this stage.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but I mean, typically though, when you start to say, hey, we're running short, that's where you dip into.
Right.
And it seems like we've already dipped into that, and, I mean, the next thing to do is not put a roof on it, or not put 4 walls on it, just do 3. I mean, there's really nothing else to cut here.
Well, you'd have to look at the scope of the project.
Well, you'd have to reduce the square footage considerably.
Depending on what the costs are, yes.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think as far as recurring costs go as well, I mean, I know you toured around quite a bit. I mean, number one, when we toured around, I mean, from what I've heard and read in the paper, most all of these projects recently have run over budget. I mean, I think many of them have run over budget. There was one in Massachusetts that ran over budget quite a bit. I think Wyndham ran over budget.
East Windsor's working on a project right now that's under budget,
What's the total cost there, though?
about $5.5 million.
$5.5 million?
Yeah.
They haven't even started construction yet, though, right?
No, it hasn't been approved yet by the...
Okay, well, I don't know how they're under budget then, if they haven't even designed it.
Because their figures have been updated.
Yeah, but I mean, they haven't even started, I mean, you don't know if you're under budget until you're done. I mean, when you have the CO, then you can tell us you're over or under, and I think...
Well, let's just say they've identified savings they didn't anticipate because of the market.
I mean...
So not every project is over budget.
I talk to a lot of people in this industry. I mean, it's the world I live and work in, and, I mean, these projects are, West Hartford School just ran $12 million over budget. Wyndham High School just ran considerably over budget, so, I mean, I've had contractors tell me that they haven't had a bid award yet this year, that the owner hasn't come back to them to say, whoa, this is way over what we thought. You're the lowest bid, but it's way over what we thought. So I'm just...
And that could happen.
I think that this is a good thing to move forward. I think we need to have a referendum on this. I'm afraid to say, it's $12.5 million, look at this drawing, look at this design. I don't think we can build that for $12.5 million. I think we can build a beautiful community center for $12.5 million. I don't think we can build this one, though.
Right.
That's all. So I just want to make sure for our residents that we let them know fairly that this may not be the final design.
Oh, absolutely.
We may have
On the record, I want this to be, it's a forecast. It's a best estimate with the information we have today. And it is just a forecast. Until we go out to bid, we won't know what
It's like to start any project, right?
And if we get to bid and it's more and we want to keep the scope of the project, then we have to make those hard decisions. And it may be another vote. We'll have to look at all of our options.
Mhm.
I think everybody's in favor of the project, but to your point,
Yeah.
The cost matters. What is that gonna look like on our debt service in the next 30 years? It's gonna have an effect.
Oh, it's
It will
absolutely...
increase it. That's the nature of the beast.
And I don't think we can say with a straight face it's not going to increase people's taxes, because I think it's going to. I mean, between operating costs and the debt service, there's going to be an increase in taxes. Now, people may be okay with an increase in taxes, that's fine.
Right.
But I don't think there's any way that we can say, we promise we're not going to increase your taxes.
Oh,
I mean, we're probably going to have
I don't think
to...
anybody's promising that, and, no, your point is well taken. It's gonna have an impact on the mill rate at some point, some way, whether, if we can get through this and everything works out the way we're projecting, but then we have a school
Yeah.
project, that's gonna have an adverse effect on the mill
Exactly.
rate. Any capital project like this, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the taxpayers are gonna pay for this one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
The question before us is, do we think this is a worthwhile project to continue on in the process, and do the residents want it? I mean,
Right.
they're great, if they vote on a referendum,
Yeah.
they don't want it, they don't want it.
Well, we have to have a referendum.
Right.
Our
Yeah.
job is to present it to the public as the best way we
Absolutely.
can,
Right.
and I think we've
Yeah.
done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, no, your points are well-founded, and, we're tight on this, absolutely, no question.
Just when I look at the quote-unquote reductions, I mean, we didn't cut anything out other than some sidewalks and things. I mean, the rest of it was, we cut the estimated price of steel, but then we also cut the cost escalator on it. So we actually
Right.
kind of double cut it. you know, we might get lucky. I mean, the economy...
We changed some materials to save money.
Right, we changed the
as well.
material,
A few
we changed the finishes, we changed commercial appliances and other things, but your point, yes.
Yeah, I mean-
The percentage is the biggest cut that we went
Yeah.
after. They said they're comfortable with it. We'll see if that's borne out when we get to real contracting.
Okay, all right. I mean, like I said, I think, you know, we'll have a public presentation on it. I think people can see it. Everyone can make their own decision. I mean, I definitely think we need to move it forward, to CIP. I think like we learned, I mean, there's potentially some nice benefits for economic development. I think that,
Absolutely.
you know, we need to do something with the senior center. I'm a little bit concerned about the externalities, and what I mean is, other residents from other towns coming to use it. And, you know, I think it puts us in the same situation that many other towns have found themselves in, where we built something nice, we heard from the Ludlow Senior Director, they're gonna come, there's no question.
Yeah.
People are gonna come and use this.
They're also gonna pay to use it.
Well,
And,
but I think
these are recreational facilities that we dearly need, that we can't make available to the public today.
But I think that's what we need to be very thoughtful and deliberate on as we move forward, that we make sure that, you know, the Summers residents who pay the increased taxes get the benefit, but people from other towns that choose to come here pay their fair share.
Absolutely.
I'd agree with that.
Yes.
I agree with that.
That makes a
know.
lot of sense, of course.
So I just think we need to make sure that all that is,
That's
Yeah,
that's not gonna be a missed opportunity, I can guarantee you.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially
That's
if
one thing
there's
I can
revenue
guarantee.
involved,
yes.
yeah. And we've had
Okay.
discussions about that, and other seniors, other centers have experienced that. They build new facilities, there's a lot of Summers people go to other towns.
Oh, it's definitely gonna happen. I mean, there's no question about it. And it's gonna be a beautiful center. You know, if this passes, if this is built, there's no question about it.
Yep.
So it's gonna draw a lot of people.
And we should charge them, in my opinion.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for all your work on this.
We need a motion.
Okay. I would make a motion, to, approve the CIP request, for the community center totaling $12,500,000 as presented,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed $12,500,000, and forward it to the CIP committee.
I'll second that motion. All those, any further discussion?
No?
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda, we have approval of minutes of the February 23rd, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
So make a motion to approve the February 23rd, 2023, regular minutes as presented.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, thank you. Next is approval of minutes of the March 2nd, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
March 2nd was, oh, the special meeting was, yes, I'll make a
Last
motion to
week.
accept the special meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, thank you. And lastly, we have approval of the minutes of the March 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
I have an amendment to those. So under new business, item number 1, the discussion of the settlement, so it says Bill Meyer made a motion. The motion actually was, for a global settlement of all pending state, federal, and the citation case. So it wasn't just the federal case.
Okay,
It was for the state, federal, and the citation case, which was a
Okay.
global settlement of all cases.
okay,
So I would just amend it to say that.
okay.
Great,
And otherwise, they look good.
thank you. Any further discussion? All those in support of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second that. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you both. You didn't have anything, Maureen?
I didn't. Todd had it. You did everything under control.